Be advised, the opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch. Hello, my name is Atty Tambuatco and welcome to our program. First of all, we'd like to commiserate. Our hearts go out to all the people who were hit by the calamity in Mindanao, and everyone around the country, I'm sure, feels very depressed considering it's Christmas. My only comment there is, if only we could get people more competent to actually address disaster relief and response. It is becoming like our streets. I'd like to raise the issue of getting people who are competent to do the jobs, put an engineer to build buildings, put a doctor to do operations if necessary, but don't do a monkey to do the work of an elephant, so to speak. It's irritating. Another piece of news before we start, well, this one I'm not really depressed about. Kim Jong-il the First is gone. Let's see who the next dictator will be and who will press the atom bomb. Before we go on, we'd like to talk about something we'd like to second guess, because that's all we can do as citizens. Now, to make the show more interesting and to add integrity to the program, and the topic being the phenomenon or the corona phenomenon put together by Dr. Teope, the issue basically on my side, and for those who don't have the legal minds, or wait, hang on, that's wrong, because the people in Malacanang have the legal minds too. At least, if I'm not mistaken, they have the license by the Regulatory Commission. But how they can perform as lawyers, putting things together, let's see, they must have come from some mataas na paaralan na mababa. Tama ba po yun? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do this, and to introduce our guest, as usual, we have Dr. John Teope to my right. John?
Hello, thank you, Harry. Great afternoon and great day to each and everyone. You know, this day and tonight and tomorrow that would watch the shows, that, and even those who would watching this in the live stream would say that, what is happening in the Philippines? What kind of a phenomenon we have right now? People would look at this phenomenon as disaster, phenomenon such as man-made disaster. We have the disaster, which is the natural disaster right now. And at this point, we have the man-made disaster. And we call it right now as the corona phenomenon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to discuss this phenomenon, we invited guests who are experts in terms of legalities, and they have the wisdom to talk about such phenomenon, such as the judiciary, and even the problems that's happening in this government. So, first is our guest. Last week, our guest is, as always mentioned, call him Bono, not Homo. He's Attorney Bono Adaza. And our next guest is a former professor in the College of Law in Ateneo, pamantasan ng lungsod ng Maynila, and in the University of Batangas, a great lawyer, Attorney Alan Paguia. So, great day.
Paano natin umpisahan ito? Kasi we all are second-guessing attorneys, not for anything. Last week, we had Attorney Bono. I'll update you, Alan. What's happened is we've come to the conclusion that no one in Malacanang seems to know what they're doing. Or better yet, they've decided to sidetrack the Constitution. Now, how and this can happen, or how it is allowed to happen, does not seem to make sense. Last night, we had on GNN, Kit Tatad, and we had J.V. Bautista, another brilliant legal mind, with no less the President, Rowan Ballesteros of the IBP. Libarios. And like you, like them, like us last week, everyone is baffled how this whole scenario has come to down. It's a circus wherein the performers are so mutated that they no longer know where the stage is and where the arena, whatever is. So it's mutation, it's metastasized, it's a phenomena. It is as bad or the freak as the storm that has hit Mindanao that continues to just pour rain. And there is no solution, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Where are we going? How do we approach this to make this show more, to put more sense into the show? Anong maganda dito? Umpisahan natin when the time, let's see, Speaker Belmonte was seen in Sugi together with Neptali Gonzalez Jr., the congressman, together with one other person. No, it wasn't Neil Tupas, Belmonte and Neptali Gonzalez, and no less the president. After which, a couple hours later, boom, out of nowhere, we've got the 58-page report.
That's a phenomenon.
Yes, and all of a sudden, the magic continues to play out. And 3 hours after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we've got the decision of 188. And then, of course, we know very well what happened days after that. It was sent to the Senate 2 days later. Before we even go to the Senate, because nag-iiba na naman ang nangyayari po ngayon, ano? Ano po mali nangyari noon para maintindihan ng taong bayan? Kayo po, Mr. Paguia.
Well, for the benefit of our people, the Filipino people, where are we now at present? There is a complaint filed for impeachment against the Chief Justice with the Senate. That is where we are now. The Senate has already convened as an impeachment body, and they have served summons to the Chief Justice as respondent. Now, before that would be the past.
Yes.
This went through the process of initiating the impeachment process, because under the Constitution, the House of Representatives has the sole and exclusive authority or power to initiate impeachment proceedings.
The third process, being the majority, now should be only over 90, which is now one-third, which is only about 92. And now they have 188, an overwhelming majority of the House. So, hindi na kailangan ng proseso ng deliberasyon. Hindi na kailangan diretsuhan na. Yun daw ang prosesong number 3 na that is available legally to the Congress.
That is looking at it from the purely mechanical or quantitative point of view. Because when the Constitution says the House of Representatives, that means the total membership, the 254, should be given
the opportunity,
reasonable opportunity to speak their minds, to be heard.
To deliberate if necessary?
Yes.
Pero there was a
to be heard, because that's the essence of due process, the reasonable opportunity to be heard. You cannot just declare yourself, even if you have the quantitative majority, you cannot pretend to assume that you speak for the entire House without giving the others, even the minority, the reasonable opportunity to be heard.
Pero,
in this particular case, at least the reasonable opportunity to know what is going on.
Attorney, there was the precedent on the Arab case. Diba? They expedite when Manny Villar read it, and no one, Dilanggalan was asking, and the speaker was not even looking at Dilanggalan during the time.
That's a good point. So many legal scholars point that out as an unconstitutional railroading. Are we going to repeat that?
So just because nakalusot does not mean it's correct. Ano ang effect niyan kung hindi tama yung proseso dinaanan? Where are we? That was my question.
Attorney Adaza.
Where exactly are we? Pag ando doon na, nakalusot na, nabigay na, submitted, transmitted, accepted by the Senate.
Patay.
How do
Patay
you,
sila.
Paano po, Attorney Adaza?
You know why? The articles of impeachment under the Constitution, under the rules, have to be verified. Verified meaning it has to be under oath by
Notarized.
those. Yeah, notarized, under oath. Those who signed the 188, who signed the articles of impeachment, should swear to the following. That's the verification, no? Under the rules of court. No? Number 1, they should swear that they caused the preparation of the articles of impeachment.
Parang notary public, yes.
Number 2, they should swear that they have read the contents and understood the same.
Patay kang bata ka.
Number
They could
two.
not have read it. Not possible. At times not physically possible.
Number 3,
Hari, uso na nga speed reading ngayon eh.
they have to state that the contents of the articles of impeachment are true and correct of their own personal knowledge and or based on the authentic documents. Now, based on this verification and the news that have been circulated around, according to 2 congressmen at least, I heard them through television and the other one through personal communication in radio and television. This is Representative Boying Rimulya of Cavite. He said, he's an assistant minority floor leader, by the way.
Pro naman yan, hindi naman anti yan eh.
Yeah.
Neither pro or anti si
He
Boying.
said that he did not sign the articles of impeachment because of the following. Nobody was given a copy of the articles of impeachment. Nobody there was given a copy of the articles of impeachment. There was a 9-minute PowerPoint presentation by Chairman Neil Tupas of the Justice Committee. After the 9-minute presentation, some members of the House of Representatives wanted to ask questions. A number of hands were raised, and they were just told, no questions are welcome. Either you sign or you don't. So, that's what happened.
If the document does not have this verification, or what I would call notarized, legally notarized, with those 4 components, what does it make this legal document? Is it even legal to begin with?
It's not legal. It's a scrap of paper. It's null and void from the very beginning.
So how come the Senate has accepted a document that is garbage?
Yeah, that was their mistake. They should have made the necessary verification of the
So
documents. Wala. Unless...
This is so elementary. And this is,
of course.
this is very elementary. To lawyers.
Of course, not only to lawyers, even to non-lawyers like you. You have already stated it's elementary.
Let me add the legal basis for the statements of our good friend
Yes, Bono.
Bono, yes.
Not homo.
Not homo.
Not homo.
Verification is defined in the rules of court as pointed out by Bono. No? Now, improper verification, meaning you do not comply with the requirements provided by the rules, has an effect under the rules of court. It says improper verification will make the document, the pleading, to be treated, will make it subject to the treatment as an unsigned pleading. Now, in the rules of court also, an unsigned pleading, like a complaint, an unsigned complaint, I quote, produces no legal effect.
Null and void.
No legal effect.
No legal effect.
It could not have been possibly received by the Senate Secretary because, number one, the authority of a secretary, even of the Senate, is purely ministerial, meaning she has no discretion. So that if a document is filed with her, for instance, a letter addressed to the Senate President, she has to check it. If it is not signed, she will have to return it. I cannot receive this. It's not in proper order. I have no authority to receive it. If she receives that, she acts beyond the scope of her authority. She cannot, even if she stamps it received by the Senate, it is invalid because she acted beyond the scope of her authority. Now, in this particular instance, the verified complaint for impeachment, if it was not properly verified, especially if there is no indication before whom the 188 signatories swore to the document. Who was the notary public? Who was the administering officer who took their oath? If there is none, then the Secretary of the Senate had no authority to receive it. She ought to have returned it. Now, if it was signed by the notary public or by the administering officer, that is the time the Secretary could receive it, but still subject to the scrutiny of her superior to see if truly based on the facts,
Binasa.
nabasa talaga.
Who is supposed to be the
Or
administering officer?
It was, number one, yung sinabi ni Bono, na they caused it to be prepared. They did not cause it to be prepared under the facts because as reported and not disputed by the administration, the document was already prepared and the instruction from the speaker supposedly was no questions allowed, just sign voluntarily or do not sign. So, that negates the first element that they represent in their verification that they were the ones who caused it to be prepared.
Attorney Paguia, who is supposed to be the one to administer?
Si Marilyn Yap, the secretary.
Based on the reports of GMA News, Marilyn Barua Yap, the Secretary General of the House of Representatives, verified the signatures. What verified the signatures mean? We still have to define that because verification does not refer to the verification of the signature. It is a verification of the personal knowledge of the one who is swearing to the document.
So which means that every congressman should have read and understand.
Of course, that's the legal definition. And the question is, since there is a timeline provided by the news agencies, which up to now has remained undisputed, 3.5 hours. Is that sufficient to accommodate 188 signatures? And by the way, there are two sets of 188 signatures. First, after the complaint, 188 signatures. Followed by the verification, another 188 signatures.
2 signatures dapat yun?
Yes. So, now, that's just for one copy. How many copies did they sign? Was it just one? No, that's very dangerous. You should sign at least 2 so that the House of Representatives will have an original in their possession. All the rest will be Xerox copies. But that would mean the each of the 188 endorsers signed 4 times within 3.5 hours.
Not physically possible.
That's
How
the
do we
point.
prove that there is this anomaly in the House of Congress when no one is stepping forward to say anything wrong about it?
Harry,
Marami abogado naman
tomorrow,
sa representative.
Alan and I will do that. First, we are going to direct a letter to the Ombudsman. Because since they violated, I assume that they violated the provision of the Constitution and the requirements of the rules of court. If they violated, it means that they lied. So they are guilty of perjury.
Nako.
Number 2,
Malalaya.
if they are guilty of perjury, they are also guilty of violating Section 3, Paragraph E of the Republic Act 3019, which is the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. And they are also guilty of violating Section 4 in relation to Section 11 of Republic Act 6017, which states categorically, which is known as the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Government Officials and Employees. We will ask the Ombudsman to inquire into these matters because it is the duty of the Ombudsman. As a matter of fact, the Ombudsman can conduct an investigation even if the communication is anonymous.
That's dangerous, attorney. Then the congressman would say, we would impeach the Ombudsman also.
How is it possible that even the Senate made this very crucial mistake in accepting the document? The giver or the presenter of the document has already presented a document that is not legal because it was not verified, not signed twice, and of course we already know done in 3.5 hours as admitted by the representatives and Tupas himself, Congressman Tupas, who was the chair of the Justice Committee. And then again another blunder by the receiving committee of the Senate. Didn't these people study law? If this is procedural and ministerial, I find it hard to believe that these people have a license to practice law.
Harry.
If you say it so nonchalantly and so casually.
No, they studied law. L-O-W. Not L-A-W. That's their problem.
Pwede pala itong nangyayari, ganitong kalala. This is not funny. This is really the gravity of this situation. Shows that you have people who are practicing law who don't know and who should not be given the license.
But you cannot just blame the lawyers, because many of the senators and many of the members of the House of Representatives are very good lawyers. But the problem is, the Filipino people hear them on radio, read them on the papers, watch them on TV, and they're saying that the impeachment process is a political process.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game. And that is misleading, because that is not what is taught in law school.
But that's but Alan, that's only the perception. That is only after the fact that it's already in the Senate. And they're rationalizing it, coming out on TV, going on radio and going on print, and everyone's defending, or either defending it or going against it. They're being proactive. Now, either side that you take, regardless of who is right, who is wrong, you are saying that procedure is already faulted. And if the procedure is faulted, the procedure, it is not a legal document. Ergo, there is no complaint. Correct me? That's how I'm understanding you.
That's perfect recitation in law school. That you get a good grade. But what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, why are the people why do they seem dazzled by this all talks? Because of the failure to make the proper qualification or distinction. You know, in law school, you are taught that the most important skill of an intelligent person is the ability to distinguish. Here, there is a misleading qualification. They qualify impeachment as a political process. That may be correct, but it is wrong, because that's not what is taught in law school. When you say it is a political process, you necessarily imply that you are comparing it with a non-political process. But impeachment may be considered political process and at the same time non-political, in the sense that it is a constitutional device. Therefore, you have the absurdity of a thing being presented as one thing and the opposite as well. That is why qualifying impeachment as a political process is misleading. So what is the proper qualification?
Yes,
in law school, it should be called a constitutional process, not political process. Because when you say political process, that will serve the ends of the ruling political party. But when you consider it as a constitutional process, you will treat it as a device, as a tool to energize the principle of checks and balances, and the overriding interest is not that of the ruling political party, but of the best interest of the Filipino people. Now, the numbers game, the matter of numbers game. No, that's not true. While it is true that the essence of democracy is the rule of majority, it is not a matter of counting the number of fingers in our hands. No, it is not quantitative, because democracy is essentially qualitative. We don't need quantitative majority. We don't need a quantitative democracy. Precisely, there are quantitative votes, there are quantitative voters, but what we are looking for are qualitative votes or qualitative voters. That is why when we say democracy is the rule of majority, the assumption of the law is that there will be more people in society who will be righteous in their decision, in their exercise of their electoral right, not just quantitative. Kaya those who say it's a political process, it's a numbers game, these are politicians.
Okay. We're going to have to take a break because I'm baffled. Okay? I'm sorry. I have to be honest.
Okay.
I am not a lawyer, but I'd like to take the position that our viewers will be just as baffled listening. And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, if you stand up and go to the toilet or get your popcorn or pick up the adobo you're eating in the kitchen, start eating it now, and while the show is going on, I guarantee you will get lost and confused. Ako, question ko doon before we come back to it, because we have to take a short break. Defining qualitative over quantitative on the marginal, or what we call the margins that are required by law, supposedly, the 188 against 287. They say they have the majority. It's a process. Never mind the rationale and the perceptions the congressmen and all the defenders are putting out on media, because media is very elusive to the truth. And the Constitution has to be the truth. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's right.
We'll translate later
All right.
for the ordinary viewers in a different language, you know, what Alan has presented.
Okay, stay
when
with
we
us.
resume.
Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back. We'll be talking South Korea.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier, we discussed about so many things about legal complications and such thing as the corona phenomenon. This phenomenon is very, conflicting right now and so complex. And we end up with the discussions on democracy. There's one good thing that I heard about democracy, qualitative and quantitative. But in every political science class would say that politics and democracy as defined as the rule of the people, and it is the majority. Now, the question of qualitative democracy exists, and there is the constitutional issue right now. Now, at this point is, let us go to the question, the hanging question, how to reconcile democracy. If democracy is quantitative and if it is the rule of majority, how is qualitative democracy is to be applied? So I would like to ask anybody.
Well, the resolution of that problem is not that complex. It is simple. When you say qualitative, you have first to take into consideration that in a democracy, the exercise of a right involves responsibility. That's where qualitative comes in. When you exercise your right, remember that you have responsibilities in the exercise of your right, like the right to vote. The right to vote, you have the responsibility to do the following, that you should know what you are voting for.
Which means, Attorney, right now we have no democracy because...
Yeah, that's true. As a matter of fact, in the words of Felix Green, in his book, which has been read all over the world, it's entitled The Enemy, he considers our democracy as fake democracy.
Or idiotized?
In a sense, because it's designed merely to protect the controlling interest of society. Like the members of Congress, the members of the lower house in particular, when they voted for this, were they thinking of the interest of the people? Were they thinking of the responsibility that they should think, that they should read it first and examine whether what is contained in the articles of impeachment is correct?
Which means that the impeachment complaint is more of a quantitative complaint rather than a qualitative.
Yeah, it's quantitative. The signing is quantitative. The numbers is quantitative. That is fake democracy.
So, do you mean, Attorney, that this 188 congressmen documented their stupidity?
In a sense, it's irresponsible to begin with. It's incompetence. It's ignorance. And that's documented in these articles of impeachment.
Documented stupidity.
Yes, in these articles of impeachment. You are correct there.
Okay, Attorney.
Under the Constitution, we have the Filipino people who ratified it, reduced into one sentence the purpose of our legal system. It is to build a just and humane society. And in relation to what you're saying, are you saying we don't have a democracy? Precisely, we don't even have a just and humane society. That is why the tense in the Constitution is to build. It's in the future. That is an implied admission that ours is not a just, ours is not a humane society. Kaya nga, to build a just and humane society. Now, the test for qualitative democracy can be made simple. The question would be, is the action of the public officer, does it promote the building of a just and humane society, and every ordinary citizen, young and old, educated formally or not, is entitled to his own opinion? Yun bang ginawa ng 188 mga congressmen na nag-endorso ng impeachment complaint? Sila ba, yung bang ginawa nila na pipirma na hindi nagbabasa, yan ba ay dinadala tayo doon sa pagtatatag ng isang makatarungan at makataong lipunan? Kung ang sagot mo ay oo, meron kang qualitative democracy. Kung sagot mo ay hindi, yan ay quantitative democracy. Ngayon, sinasabi mo, liability of the 188. The 188 who signed the impeachment complaint, the 188 members of the House of Representatives, they can be viewed two ways. Collectively, meaning as a whole, or individually. Collectively, they try to justify compliance with the Constitution because they have definitely achieved the required one-third vote of the total number of membership. The problem is, they overlook the requirements of law for each congressman or for each public officer, which is in Article 19 of the Civil Code, a substantive law, which says that every person, private or public, in the performance of his duties must, four standards. Number 1, act with justice. Number 2, give everyone his due. Number 3, observe honesty and good faith. The question, therefore, is this: did the 188 congressmen, in the performance of their duties as representative of the people, act with justice in signing something they have not read? Did they give everyone his due, especially their constituents and the sovereign Filipino people in general? Did they observe honesty? They said that they read it when in fact they did not. And did they observe good faith? Do they know that it is really what the document was presented to them, that actually they signed even if they have not read? So these are the considerations that Bono was saying would render the Senate proceedings baseless, because if the initiation of the impeachment process violates the law, it is, according to the Civil Code, void from the beginning. And according to the case of Velasco versus Lopez, 1901, continued up to now. Void means no legal existence. It never happened.
But, Attorney Paguia, the congressmen themselves say that they did follow those 4 points. We're saying they did not. They're saying, you've heard Neil Tupas on radio and TV, he insists that they have read it.
But Harry, the rules...
Even though it's not physically possible with the 3.5 hours, they still insist.
No, the point is, in the rules of evidence, evidence to be believed must not only come from the mouth of a credible witness, but must be credible in itself. As you stated, they cannot possibly have read the 57-page articles of impeachment in 3 hours and 45 minutes. Especially, they were not given a copy. So what did they read? The 9-minute PowerPoint presentation. They are lying in their verification. That's clear. They are saying this, but the evidence does not support
So they
their
commit
statement.
perjury?
They committed perjury. Sure. As clear as day.
Maybe we should not sound too judgmental, but that is the opinion of Bono, and there is merit to it. But we can tone it down by saying, all right, let us not prejudge their guilt. Let us just say that they committed misrepresentation. Because that is not a crime, but that is a violation of the public trust.
Naku, mali rin yun. Let's go forward. Okay, let's go forward. Nakalusot na itong isang mistake. You know, we've had blunders and boo-boos, one after the other, and the best example was Joseph Estrada. We slapped onto him everything, including the kitchen sink. Pumasa. In the end, pinalabas siya. You know, the sad part is, yung taong bayan mismo vindicated him. You remember, 8 million votes on the last, considering that Noynoy was the son of Cory, who everybody thought was a saint. Di ba? Now,
Not everybody, ha?
yeah, well, buti na lang. My comment on the quantitative versus the quantitative versus qualitative, if the voters themselves are mang-mang, wala rin mangyayari. Because to begin with, the voting procedure and the voting exercise, when people are voting and not understanding issues, and they're going for personality or selling their votes, which has been the case, means that's quantitative and not qualitative, and the people were not exercising.
That's fake democracy.
Yes, that's fake democracy. Let's go forward in our fake democracy, and let's try to find out where we think we're going, or second guess what's going to happen in January. So, binigay sa Senado, mali ang pag-accept ng Senado, hindi dapat, illegal document to, it's not legal, hindi na verify, hindi na stamp, pumasok na. The Senate, no less, wore the red robes. And they went through the process. Where do you think it's going from here? Di ba? Andito na tayo.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Well, it is not, as a lawyer, I would assume that the interested parties would file a petition with the Supreme Court questioning the unconstitutionality of the initiation process. Meaning, the congressmen cannot be considered to have complied with their constitutional duty in their role as sole initiators of the impeachment because they signed something that they have not read. And that is a violation of the public trust. In plain terms, no need to prove because it is in law school we teach, it's all right to violate the law. You can argue. Oh, it's even all right if you violate the Constitution. That's arguable. But you cannot violate common sense. And this is the secret. The law and the Constitution are based in common sense. But these congressmen appear to have violated the law, the Constitution, and common sense as well because they want us to believe something that is physically and demonstrably impossible.
You've got a brilliant mind in law. Harvard pa yan, si JPE, Senate Speaker. You've got Miriam Defensor, who is ascending to no less the International Criminal Court in The Hague. These two legal minds, never mind the rest in the Senate, they didn't even see this.
Nobody's perfect.
No, and besides, Harry, it was not presented, the whole problem was not presented to them because, as Alan pointed out, the physical receipt of the articles of impeachment is done by the Secretary of Congress, of the Senate. And it's not unlikely that the Secretary General of the Senate did not present it to Miriam or Enrile. They assume that the Secretary General of the Senate observed the requirements.
The legal presumption.
Yeah, because of the legal presumption.
Isn't this interesting? We've been watching TV shows, hearing radio shows, and reading on print for the last week and a half this phenomena that's ongoing and yet today in this TV show, in this program, we've come up with a totally different point of view that makes everything illegal, makes everything a joke. It is not even a legal document. So how can you even begin to have an impeachment? And it's made a fool of the senators who already convened in the last day and put on their red robes traipsing around as if they're judges. Yung pala, hey, sorry guys, we just wasted your time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's true, but that has to be done by way of a petition to the Supreme Court questioning the action of the 188 congressmen.
It will come soon. Within the week.
It will have to be that. And this is the beautiful part. The impeachment will be exposed as not so much a blackmail of the 188 because of their pork barrel, but a blackmail of the rest of the members of the Supreme Court. Why? Because now that their Chief Justice has been impeached, what message does that convey to the 14 others? There is what Father Berna says, a chilling effect, a chilling message, meaning from the executive in connivance with the House leadership, who publicly admitted that he immediately reported to the President, I don't know why, since they are supposed to be co-equal and independent, that the impeachment has been approved. Now, the thing is, what can they do regarding this impeachment, this question of constitutionality? Now, the 14 justices, and this is the blackmail of the impeachment, will think twice. Because in deciding that petition, even the pending petitions for the declaration of unconstitutionality of the watch list order and the constitutionality of the DOJ COMELEC panel, they will now be in a blackmailed position where they will be damned if they do and damned if they don't. Meaning, if they declare constitutionality, people will say, natakot, nanginig. They're afraid to do their constitutional duty, to do what is right. But if they declare it unconstitutional, Pinoy will say, pro-gloria talaga. Talagang pinoprotektahan yung ang Chief Justice. This is the real blackmail. It's the blackmail of the institution. The problem with the executive, the problem with the House of Representatives is, they forget that they're not dealing with 15 magistrates. They're dealing with the Supreme Court of the Republic of the Philippines. They're dealing with an institution established by the sovereign Filipino people. And by misleading arguments like, we don't believe in the principle of the end justifies the means, no? But you know what they're doing? They focus on the end. Let us jail Gloria. Let us impeach Corona. This is the end. We have no argument with that. By all means, let us hold accountable. Let us prosecute. Let us jail all those who can be proven guilty. But we must observe due process because that the means are just as important as the end.
By the way, Harry, no, before you go into it, there are 2 points that I'd like to raise. No? With the statement of the president that he wanted to impeach Corona because according to him, not every law is right. That's according to him. Meaning, he's the one who will decide on what is right about the law. He doesn't know his constitution because the final arbiter of what is the law is the Supreme Court. Not even Corona. And the second point I want to raise here, and we included that in the declaration, which we issued yesterday, you know, that if Corona is partial, and he should be removed, because he's always in favor of GMA, what about the 9 others?
14.
The 14 others who voted? They should also be removed. This is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause under Section 1 of Article 3. Kaya nga, there will be no Supreme Court and there will only be an Aquino Supreme Court since he will appoint everybody.
In other words, what Bono is saying in legal terms, in law school, you cannot, under the Constitution, you cannot properly indulge in selective prosecution. Because selective prosecution is not prosecution, that is persecution, which is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. If 15 are guilty, by all means, prosecute the 15, but do not choose just one. Because then, you will be guilty of unequal treatment.
That gentlemen, overtime na tayo, but very quickly, I wanted to present this last week. Ideas, principles, and lost opportunities. Let's have the camera come closer. Recollection of moments which could have influenced the drift of contemporary Philippine history. Ladies and gentlemen, a book by Homobono, Adaza. Where can we get this?
At Popular Bookstore.
At Popular Bookstore.
And at La Solidaridad.
La Solidaridad. So, I'm not sure we have any more time to... so I'm just going to say goodbye. Bye. Yeah, quickly. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Till then.
Kulang. Talagang kulang na kulang.
Meron pa ba next week? Tuloy.
If you're free next week. Wait natin para pasok.